Number 10. Socotra Island. Socotra Island has been surrounded by mysteries and myths since the time it was discovered. Between the Horn of Africa and the Arabian Peninsula, the legends of the island date back all the way to ancient times. The reason it's so often spoken about is due to the strange abnormalities on the island. It's weird, and people like that stuff. That's why you're here. It is full of flora and fauna that don't exist anywhere else in the world. One of the most iconic trees is something called the dragon's blood tree. It kind of looks like somebody took like a evergreen tree and like gathered all the pins and needles to the top, and it's all veiny. It's so weird. Mysterious mists and bleach white sand flow over the isolated island in ways no one can explain. The island is also host to a wealthy collection of spiders, no thank you, reptiles and birds, many of which are native and endemic to the island. It certainly is like no other place on Earth, with many secrets still yet untold.
Number 9. Bobbing for brains. In 2017, British Columbia's Stanley Park hosted what they called a BioBlitz, a 24-hour event where scientists and adventurers of all ages would come together to try to catalog as many species in the area as they could. One of the so-called blitzers saw something strange in the water, a pulsating slimy blob, and when they went in for a closer look, it seemed that they'd stumbled across a human brain floating there in the pond. Upon further inspection, however, it was revealed that it was in fact a rare colony of microorganisms that had grouped together, known as a bryozoan. These organisms, which feed on algae and plankton, group together in large blobs, so they can stand a better chance against the harsh world of an aquatic ecosystem. But they were thought to not exist in freshwater west of the Mississippi River, which was both exciting and concerning to scientists. Since they can only survive in waters that are warmer than 60 degrees Fahrenheit or 15.5 degrees Celsius, scientists think that this can be another warning sign of global warming, showing rising water temperatures around the world and the effect that it has on the ecosystem.
Number 8. Mahabalipuram. The early life of Mahabalipuram is shrouded in mystery. Though it was once part of the Pallava dynasty that ruled over part of southern India between the 3rd and 9th centuries AD. But prior to this, legends allude to the first king Bali, Mahabali, sacrificed himself to the 5th avatar of Vishnu, after which he became enlightened. Based on discoveries made by excavators, this spot was really active in the trade of goods and other artifacts, even having trade with the Romans. It was a hub of culture, art, and literature full of thriving life. One of the biggest attractions was the complex series of temples called the 7 Pagodas of Mahabalipuram. However, today, only one of the 7 can still be seen, as the others are submerged underwater. Other legends say that the god Indra became jealous of the architectural elegance and caused flooding in order to submerge the city, which may very well be the reason it's beneath the waves today, due to the wrath of the gods. Number 7. A mysterious chest. Where'd my scarf go? It's in the chest. It's in the ocean. Beneath the waves and the swells of the Indian Ocean, there's a mysterious chest that could contain treasure for all humanity. Or evil. Who knows? Underwater snaps of the chest show that it belongs to a cargo ship from the 1800s. The trunk was discovered during a search for the missing MH370 flight that went missing, but they found 2 shipwrecks instead, so they're like, wow, shipwrecks, not people. At first they got really excited when they came across the debris field, thinking that they had finally found the missing craft. But then they found out they were pirate ships and they're like, wow, exciting! Even more mysterious though is that the WA Maritime Museum has no records of the ships, thinking that it may have been a ship lost at sea and everybody died on board. However, whatever is in the chest remains to be seen, and the search for the missing plane continues. Number 6. The oldest tsunami victims. Over 1,000 years ago on the east coast of Africa, there was a Swahili fishing village bustling and busy along their day. But then all of a sudden, a tsunami devastated the village. Based on findings published in National Geographic, revealed a macabre discovery. They found a site in Tanzania that is the first and oldest tsunami deposit bearing human remains found in East Africa. The oldest human remains in a tsunami deposit was also found in the Indian Ocean just across the way, in Papua New Guinea, and is 7,000 years old. However, this tsunami doesn't appear to have been that big. But I mean, a tsunami is a tsunami, you know? It's a big deal, either way. But because the people lived so close to the ocean and they were on the other side of it, they would have had no warning. No earthquake to hear that it was coming. So, poor guys. Number 5. The lost city of Krishna. For all the Atlantis fans out there, sadly it wasn't that. But just because it wasn't doesn't mean it wasn't, I don't know, cool. In my opinion, it's cooler because it's real. For a long time, people in India considered Lord Krishna's city of Dwarka a myth, until all of a sudden, it wasn't. Indian scientists finally discovered the lost city had been submerged off the northwestern coast of India. It is now one of the best studied underwater sites and has become a famous attraction. It is even considered one of the 4 dharmas, a sacred place of pilgrimage and worship. Lord Krishna founded the holy city and numerous stone structures still remain. Research suggests that it used to be the busiest port town before it sunk beneath the waves over 4,000 to 5,000 years ago. Number 4, the Gondwana pieces. A mysterious ancient continent called Gondwana was discovered in the Indian Ocean, and scientists were stoked. It was an ancient supercontinent formed over 500 million years ago. It broke up about 180 million years ago into the landmasses that make up Africa, South America, Australia, Antarctica, the Indian subcontinent, and the Arabian Peninsula. Researchers are only discovering that there were microcontinents beneath basalt rocks when they found fossils. They were like, whoa, wait, animals used to live here? What is this thing? This discovery could mean that previously established beliefs about how the plate tectonics broke apart could be shattered, just like the continent was over hundreds of millions of years ago. Number 3, a transformer. I feel like the ocean is a perfect spot for aliens to vacation, you know? Like, why not? Tons of scenery, plenty of food, opportunity to pull pranks on humans. Why the heck not? It's perfect. So when this was discovered, everyone was shocked, except for me, because I don't know if I can be surprised on this channel anymore. When a new species turns up, the first thing the world says, it's aliens! But this very well may be a new creature in the crazy world that lives beneath the waves. However, you have to admit the footage is pretty bizarre. It looks like a creature is literally transforming itself 3,700 feet below. Check out this clip. At 45 seconds in, it just looks like it's having a grand old time floating, like, whee! I'm going down. And then at 1 minute and 28 seconds in, it completely flips over and these little stripes of light reflect on its head. To me, it kind of looks like they are machine lights. It becomes more active and starts swimming around the craft almost as if it's teasing them. I don't know, friends, let me know what you think in the comments down below. New octopus or alien, friends? Both. Number 2, Diego Garcia. Now I know this wasn't technically recovered, but it sure is terrifying. The island of Diego Garcia in the Indian Ocean has a murky and mystery past that the CIA doesn't like to talk about. It may have been their secret prison where they tormented their captives. The US government has persistently denied claims that it operated a secret war on terror within the confines of the island, but that wouldn't be the first time or last time they lied about something. A Swiss senator by the name of Dick Marty was the one who produced a detailed report alleging the torment that happened on the island. Marty told the European Parliament, "We have received concurring confirmations that United States agencies have used Diego Garcia, which is the international legal responsibility of the UK, in the processing of high-value detainees." Processing was in quotations, so you can only imagine what that was hinting at. Number 1, a mysterious glow. The Milky Sea has been a phenomenon for ages, but as of yet, no one has quite been able to explain it. Jules Verne even wrote about the Milky Sea in his famous novel 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. The legend of the Milky Sea became just that when sailors would come in from sailing. They'd be like, whoa, did you check out this weird sea that we came across? It was crazy. But they'd be like, dude, you're nuts. Even in modern times, scientists dismissed it because the level of bacteria needed to create that would be colossal and they considered that impossible. Yet it exists. Essentially, it's a glowing part of the Indian Ocean with an unknown source which remains under debate. The leading theory is that it has to do with large collective of bioluminescent fish plankton hanging about. The reason it was proven was that Steve Miller checked a British merchant vessel that reported seeing it in January 25th, 1995, and I quote, "On a clear moonless night while 150 nautical miles east of the Somalian coast, a whitish glow was observed on the horizon and, after 15 minutes of steaming, the ship was completely surrounded by a sea of milky white color. It appeared as though the ship was sailing over a field of snow or gliding over the clouds." Miller used the Defense Meteorological Satellite Program, DMSP, and its polar orbiting satellites to detect this ethereal event. He matched the coordinates recorded by the ship to the date, and then he found it when he actually just waited and watched for it. The glowing spot spanned 15,400 kilometers of glowing Indian Ocean for 3 nights in January.
Number 10, radioactive fish. Now, most of you you will have seen the three-eyed fish from The Simpsons that lives in the pond near the reactor in Springfield. But what if I told you there were some real creepy creatures growing near a real nuclear site? The Chernobyl nuclear meltdown is the biggest disaster of its kind that has ever occurred, and the site and surrounding area still remains uninhabitable to this day, unless you're not a human, that is. In the cooling pond for the now destroyed reactor, some monsters lie in wait. Massive catfish, thought to be the result of radiation mutation. I mean, look at that thing. The largest found at the site was measured to be 1.65 meters in length, and that's the size of a person. I would assume that that was a mutant too, especially given how close it is to the defunct reactor. But scientists have discovered that the absolutely gargantuan fish have not been affected by radiation, but by the rest of the cooling pond's ecosystem. Since there are no predators for the catfish that still live in the pond, they have an isolated food chain that they can be the king of, feeding on smaller fish, worms, and even amphibians, allowing them to grow to this massive size. Scientists are still doing more research in the area to see how other wildlife has been affected by the radiation.
Number 9. Giant phantom jellyfish. Beautiful? Yes. Terrifying and for sure an alien? Also yes. This beast was discovered back in 2021 in, you guessed it, Monterey Bay. The classic spot apparently for sea monsters. The research team sent in a deep sea robot to take a look into the abyss, and they discovered this phantom giant jellyfish again. Yeah, I said again. Originally, this jellyfish was documented back in 1899, living at depths of 3,000 to 13,000 feet. It's, yeah, more than fair. She's hard to catch. Who is she down there? Never know. But luckily, we got a video of her in action last year. Check it out. This is why I don't ever go in the oceans. Ever. Cheers.
Number 8. Coffin on the course. In 2019, maintenance workers at the Tetney Golf Club in Grimsby, England, were tending to a water hazard, and they stumbled upon something amazing under a mound of gravel at the bottom of the pond, a large wooden coffin. When archaeologists arrived to investigate, they realized the significance this find could hold. So, to keep the wood from disintegrating when it was removed from the water, they put it in a bag while it was underwater so that it could be removed from the pond while staying submerged. After sitting in cold storage for a year to strengthen it for examination, scientists began their work and opened the coffin. Inside, they found no identifiable remains, as DNA testing has proved unfruitful. Likely they rotted away under the water, but they did find something else. An axe, which appears to be from the Bronze Ages, around 40,000 years ago. Woolly mammoths still roamed the earth at that time. The coffin was made from a single oak tree and was lined with plants for cushioning, which helped date the objects. It also shows that whoever was buried in it was of some great esteem. For number 7, we take an even darker turn. In 2017, Oklahoma resident Brandon Duran had his life taken by his ex-wife and her new boyfriend, but his body was not discovered for quite some time. That is, until a witness who actually helped dispose of the deceased came forward and told the police where he could be found. Police sent divers to the bottom of a local pond, and what they found was truly shocking. Multiple buckets were retrieved from the bottom of the pond, and forensic research showed that after he had died, perpetrators decided to dispose of him in the grisly manner of dismembering, then placing body parts in different buckets, filling them with concrete, and throwing them into the pond. The people who committed this gruesome crime were arrested and brought to justice, and a documentary was even made about the case. Number 6. Boiling point. Now, we've all heard of hot springs, but this next entry really takes the cake. This interesting body of water is located on the beautiful island of Dominica and has some very strange properties. It was first reported in 1870, but it wasn't until 1875 that it was fully investigated by scientists. The 250-foot wide lake was giving off steam and even bubbling, and the temperatures measured were around 92 degrees Celsius at the water's edge, near boiling. And the water was too hot to measure in the center, but since the water is actively bubbling, it must be over 100 degrees Celsius or 212 Fahrenheit. The water is likely heated by an underwater volcano, which causes gas heated by magma to increase the temperature of the water to its boiling point. Scientists have seen periodic large fluctuations in both the temperature and the water level, which they attribute to eruptions nearby. In 1880, the lake disappeared almost completely and became a fountain of hot water and steam, or a geyser, refilling over the next few years. In 2004, the levels lowered by 33 feet, but in 2005 refilled completely in one day. This showed scientists just how fragile the local geological systems are. Even though it seems like the next level of a hot spring, do not go swimming here. Number 5. Frozen flames. Speaking of hot water, this next entry on the list has shocked scientists around the world because even though this pond in Alaska is frozen over, the water can actually be lit on fire. These special bodies of water are called thermokarsts, and when frozen over, flammable gas coming from the bottom is trapped and then released when a hole is stabbed in the surface, allowing for the impressive display of fire and ice when lit. But it wouldn't be on this list if there wasn't something more sinister behind it. The reason this phenomenon is occurring is what's frightening, because the gas being released is methane gas, which is not only very flammable, but a potent greenhouse gas. So why are more and more of these methane lakes being found? Well, most of this gas was actually frozen and trapped in soil and ice during the Ice Age, and now rising global temperatures as a result of climate change are melting these methane beds, creating huge pockets of greenhouse gases just waiting to be released into the atmosphere. So while this is a cool party trick, the fact that it can happen at all proves that we need to find a way to combat both the cause and the effects. Number 4. Cannibal frogs. The name Goliath frog is crazy enough on its own, but there's more to these amazing African amphibians than their size. While the frogs themselves can weigh as much as a whopping 3.3 kilograms or 7.2 pounds, they're strong enough to move stones up to 2/3 of their own size. They move these rocks to create nests for their young to be protected from predators and the environment. The stones and other objects used create their own pond, and the frog then lays their eggs inside. And as the tadpoles hatch and grow, they leave the nest on their own once they're big enough to scale the walls. Unfortunately, most of these tadpoles will never make it out alive. Many species of frogs, including the Goliath frog, eat not only insects and other arthropods, but they also eat their own tadpoles and even other frogs. So not only are these guys massive, but they're cannibals too. Giant cannibal frogs. Now, that sounds like a movie on par with Sharknado. Number 3. Ancient tools and bones. In 2018, archaeologists were working in the Nufud Desert in Saudi Arabia and came across something they were not expecting. I know, a desert is not a pond, but this desert was once the bed of a pond or swampy area, shown by fossilized bones that have been found of small water birds, grazing animals, and even predators that frequented watering holes like jaguars. But along with the bones, the scientists also uncovered stone tools made by humans between 300,000 and 500,000 years ago, proving that earlier fossils they had found with chips and cuts were caused by humans. The tools were most likely made and used by early hominins like Homo erectus and predate any other artifacts found in the Arabian Peninsula by more than 100,000 years. Things like this showing just how long humans have been around and how far we've come always blows my mind. Number 2. Haunted by horses. In Milton, Ontario, there's a disturbing legend that dates all the way back to 1885 at Crawford Lake, one of the many bodies of fresh water in Ontario. The story goes that a father and son were carting lumber across the frozen lake in the winter, for construction or for warmth, nobody knows, but their horse-drawn cart was too heavy when weighed down with the cargo and crashed through the ice. The father and son floated to the surface and escaped with their lives, but the horses attached to the cart were sadly dragged to the bottom, where they sit perfectly preserved. At night, from the water's edge, they can be seen staring out from the depths with ghostly red eyes, longing to escape their watery grave. No one has officially investigated this, so for now, the mystery remains unsolved. Number 1. Death Pond. If you're not already afraid of the ocean, this should do the trick. 1.5 miles under the surface of the Indian Ocean lies a so-called death pond, created from pockets of minerals over 23 million years ago, and it kills anything that enters it instantly. Fish, shrimp, eels, you name it. If it enters, it never leaves. Scientists have discovered many of these death ponds throughout the Red Sea, and they're filled with brine and salty solutions, but absolutely zero oxygen, which is what makes the area so deadly to sea creatures. Other predators use these pools as hunting grounds, cleaning up the borders of anything that made the mistake of trying to swim through, as they go into shock from the lack of oxygen and immediately die, making for easy pickings for the predators. You know what they say, work smarter, not harder.
Kicking off our list at number 10, a mammoth tusk. Scientists are currently trying to bring the woolly mammoth back to life, so it's fitting that we throw this recent discovery on our list here. Back in 2019, scientists from Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute, they were poking around the ocean floor. They were poking around 10,000 feet, not too far off the coast of California, and they found what they thought was an elephant tusk. Now that by itself would be a pretty neat discovery. Animal remains in the deep sea, let's go, that's great. No, this one was even better. We found a mammoth tusk. At first, the team only grabbed a small sample, but last year, in July, they were able to return and get the entire thing. Voila! It belonged to a Colombian mammoth. Those were mammoths that didn't have a lot of hair. They didn't need it. They lived in North America, so things got a little warm sometimes. 10,000 years after they died off, we're still finding their tusks. What do you think about bringing them back to life? Should we do that? Sound off below. I say no. Definitely not. They're way too big and scary. Also, they died before. They'll probably die again. Sorry, I don't know.
Number 9, SIPHONOPHORE. We know that there are some pretty gnarly creatures that live in the big blue, and adding to that list, we have the SIPHONOPHORE. Check out this guy.
Oh, how cool. What? I mean, oh my gosh.
This creature was discovered 2,000 feet below the Indian Ocean by a robot exploring a canyon. At first glance, it kind of looks like a piece of trash, maybe like a toilet brush attached to like a plastic bag or several. It has many working parts, all with a different job. It can even glow if it wants to. Some parts of its body can catch prey, digest food, reproduce, and others of course swim. Busy dudes. They can grow up to lengths of 40 meters, which is longer than a blue whale, which by the way is Earth's biggest animal. However, in terms of width, it's only about as wide as a broomstick. What's even crazier is that in 2020, the year when the world shut down, scientists still discovered the longest version, 150 meters, making it the longest creature ever discovered.
Number 8. Deep sea anglerfish. These guys are so scary, we have to talk about them. Living at depths of over 6,000 feet, the deep sea anglerfish lives in complete darkness. Like Vin Diesel in Pitch Black. It was first discovered back in 1833 when it washed ashore in Greenland and was then taken to Johann Christopher Hangman Reinhardt in Denmark. It was first referred to as the football fish or the man gobbler. Great names, okay. Female anglerfish have a glowing lure at the top of their head. That's how we recognize them. It's like the whoop thing, right, in Finding Nemo. It's scary and it's something I'm glad hides at the bottom of our oceans, but it's needed for their survival. The light is created due to bioluminescent bacteria. Thousands of fish have it, and in the deep sea, anglerfish uses it to hunt. It draws fish in right in front of its massive, scary mouth and then just, they see the disco light, and then moments later they see another light, the light of the fish lords. The spiny dorsal fin hangs over their head. It's called an esca, it's an organ, and it emits photophore light. It's a main method of hunting, which is pretty badass. It kind of has to be because it has no arms or anything. It's just a big scary face moving around the ocean. And as for prey, well, she'll take what she can get, no matter how big.
Probably ate it head first, because this thing probably came in to look at the light that the anglerfish has, and then the anglerfish grabbed it and then sort of swallowed it, and its stomach has expanded to sort of fit it all in.
The deep sea anglerfish can expand their jaw and stomach, and they can eat prey that's twice the size of them, although they often eat shrimps, snails, and other smaller fish. But once you're in, you're tucked, you're not going anywhere. You're screwed. The males actually aren't equipped with the natural lure of light, and when they reach adulthood, their digestive system no longer functions. So it needs one of these leading ladies to survive. I'll let that speak for itself. Number 7, old coral reefs. Or dying coral reefs. This one's actually kind of sad. After all, the list is dark discoveries. These are all scary or dark, literal darkness for some of them. Back in 2009, after a 4-week expedition to explore the deep ocean just southwest of Tasmania, scientists found deep water coral reefs, which is exciting at first until they realized that these coral reefs are dying. They're on their way out. So now there needs to be more research done into why exactly these reefs are dying. We would like to know that. That's kind of something we're working on currently. If the reason they're dying happens to extend to the shallow reefs as well, this could cause massive problems for both marine life and us, our human life. Scientists need to figure out whether the coral was dying because of the ocean warming up, maybe it was disease, or perhaps it was an increase in ocean acidity. Whatever the case is, if it extends into shallower water, it's bad news for us. 25% of marine life would lose their habitat. The coastal fishing industry would be affected, of course, so no more fish and chip specials. Save the ocean, you know? For red lobster's sake, let's smarten up and save the ocean. Number 6, CHUUK Lagoon. This lagoon was Japan's main base during the war, but come 1944, the United States launched an attack, which some deem as Japan's Pearl Harbor, where 60 ships were sunk and around 250 planes as well. So for 70 years, there's been a massive graveyard, literally just sitting in the depths of the Pacific, and it wasn't until recently where we got a good look at these haunting artifacts from history. This photographer went down, took some photos, and said it was one of the scariest shoots ever. They described the atmosphere filled, of course, with, human skulls, remains, gas masks, bullets. Obviously, it was haunting to look at. Nobody wanted to go down, so that's when we send in a submarine. That's when we send in a drone, because we don't like to look at skulls and picking up stuff out of the sand. We don't like to do that. Nobody was expecting these artifacts to be that well preserved after all this time, too. Like all these things, even a mammoth tusk, these are all in pristine condition almost. It's like the ocean's haunting and unexplored. Number 5, holes. If you have trypophobia, you may want to skip this one. or face your fears together. I don't like holes either. I'm diving in. Let's do it. Off the coast of Big Sur, California, which is a real place and not just a Mac update, a survey revealed about 15,000 holes on the bottom of the ocean, and they're all the same size, which is weird. They all measure up to be 11 meters wide and 1 meter deep. The team at Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute, our friends, they found about 15,000 of these, and then they found 5,000 more that were even bigger. The little guys are micro depressions in the earth, and the big ones are pockmarks. Initially, scientists here thought that it was methane underneath the seafloor coming out to say hi and, leaving a big crater, big poof. So rovers went down there, tests were done, no methane. In fact, there hasn't even been any methane for 50,000 years. So what's going on here? These craters are doing a pretty good job with the ecosystem though, wildly, because now there's deep sea creatures just living in them. They even found a whale skull just laying in one. Imagine being a crab, coming home to that. I throw up. I go blink, little bubble of puke in the ocean. Number 4, MV Derbyshire. This ship was twice the size of the Titanic, but James Cameron didn't make a movie about it, so you may not have heard about it. Let me fill you in. I'm not James Cameron, but I'll do my best. The MV Derbyshire was the biggest British registered merchant ship of all time to sink. That's an odd brag when you think about it. But she was assembled back in 1976 and lost in 1980 en route from Canada to Japan. A Mayday distress call was never issued, and the ship was following proper ocean routes with weather routing companies, so they were doing all the right things, yet somehow it sank. September 15th, 1980, a search began for the missing ship and crew, but 6 days later, the search was called off. Nothing was found, not even a clue, honestly. The ship was declared lost. The sister ship of the Derbyshire ended up sinking as well due to a deck cracking, so the families urged officials to search again. Come 1994, the Derbyshire was found. Number 3, a huge squid. I'll talk about this thing every chance I get. I hope you haven't seen or heard about this because I slept a lot better the less I knew, honestly. The big fin squid, the BFS, the big squid, is rarely seen, hence why it's on our list here today. It actually lurks in many oceans, hiding in the deep. The big fin squid lives in the permanent dark zones of the ocean, around 1,200 meters or 4,000 feet deep in the sea. So the guy can't see anything. He's blind down there, as are most of these monsters. On November 11th, 2007, an ROV was searching around the deepest, darkest waters in the Gulf of Mexico, and lucky for us, they got one on film. Yeah, 23 feet long. I know you're probably wondering as soon as you saw that video. Depth perception is like, oh, maybe it's small, maybe it's this. Nope, stupidly large. They look like balloons, scary, haunting balloons, just casually floating, watching you. I hate how calm it looks too. It looks like it locked onto you, like it's like kinda following your moves. Is this a boss battle? This feels like a boss battle. Let's move on, this guy's scary. Number 2, SIPHONOPHORE. Siphonophores, okay, where do I even begin? This is a real thing, not an alien? Okay, cool. Upon first glance, this appears to be a single multicellular organism, but they're actually an entire colony of polyps and medusoids that are collectively known as a zooid. Yep, I'm saying real words, I'm not just making them up. A few years ago, scientists found the longest siphonophore ever. They found it and it was 154 feet long. If you thought that last creature was long, this thing is stupid. Just a huge long piece of spaghetti just floating around in the ocean. But really it's actually not spaghetti, it's a bunch of different little creatures all working together. Reading up about this thing, there was a quote that I read and it said, "We at least need to know what's down there." No, we don't. Leave it alone. Leave everything, leave it alone down there. I can't even deal with a spider in the apartment. Where do I even begin with this? And finally, number 1, an ancient city. We'll end this list with a recent discovery. The lost Egyptian city of Heraklion was found after disappearing under the Mediterranean Sea 1,200 years ago. Now this city has a bit of history behind it, being founded in the 8th century BC and all, and researchers believe Heraklion was the port that you'd arrive in if you were to travel back then. Well, recently, last summer in 2021, more to this ancient sunken city was found in Egypt, and it's changing history, dare I say. This was led by the European Institute for Underwater Archaeology. This sunken military vessel, this 25-meter ship, was found in this sunken ancient city. In another part of this lost city, remains of a Greek funerary area was also discovered, dating back to around the 4th century BC. So this discovery connects the historical dots for us. Greek merchants living in the ancient Egyptian city. This tells us that the Greeks settled here during the late pharaoh dynasties, which is wild. We're literally just connecting all these pieces of this historical puzzle. And also we're finding treasure at the same time, so it's not all scary fish. We just need to send cameras and submarines underwater everywhere and just check under every shell. What a wild list this was.